Hey, what's up, Fanny Pack family? This is John. I'm a physical therapist, and today I'll be doing a special video, something a little bit different. A lot of you guys on the subreddits Posture and Posture Tips Guide are looking to improve your posture. You have questions about things that you could be doing better to alleviate pain, to also just have better posture in general because you're health conscious. As a physical therapist, I really emphasize posture to most of my clients when they come into the clinic because I think it tells a lot about their muscle and length tension relationships in their joints. For example, a lot of people suffer from an anterior pelvic tilt, or APT for short, is related to having a relatively weaker or unengaged abdominal muscles and also weaker unengaged gluteal muscles, whereas the hip flexors up in the front are pulling a little bit too hard, or the low back muscles are really tight. What I'm going to show you guys today is a way that I assess posture, and it's a very simple method that you could do with a pen and paper. I'm going to be using my iPad today to also kind of show my thought process. So I'm pulling some pictures from the subreddits Our Posture and Our Posture Tips Guide, and so I hope this video is helpful for you guys. Just go ahead and give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you like more content regarding how to better your posture and fix various pain issues. Now, just as a disclaimer, none of this is medical advice particular to you. If you have posture issues or posture related pain, please consult a medical professional first. All right, so let's get started. All right, so I'm just gonna be pulling up a couple of pictures. First, I wanna go over what exactly is good posture. If you have bad posture, how are you supposed to know what reference point to go through? I like to go by a simple method called the Plumbline Posture Guideline. And you can see over here, the individual on the right, there's a plumb line down the middle of the ear hole to the shoulder joint to the center of the hip. So when you're standing, it should be ear to shoulder to hip, and also other people might be looking also at your knee and ankle positioning as well. But we won't go into too much detail about that because a lot of the photos that I'm finding on Reddit are actually of people's upper torso rather than their whole viewpoint. Right, so if you kind of see over here, the individual second from the right is known to have a forward head. So what I like to do typically is, once I have a picture like this, is I draw a line from the center of the hips and I go all the way up. Okay, so you can see for this gentleman over here in this particular instance, his shoulders are actually in line with his hips when looking from a plumb line that just drops straight down. However, his ear hole is way forward here. All right, so he's got a forward head. Now that could be a variety of reasons. It could be that he has weakness in his deep neck flexors, or he's got a lot of tightness in his levators, scalenes, different muscle groups. All right, next, we're gonna look at this gentleman over here. So again, draw the line from the center of the hips, plumb line straight down, perpendicular to the ground. And what you see here is that his shoulder joint is a bit forward and his ear hole is forward as well. So he has what's known as thoracic kyphosis, and that typically is shown by having this curvature in the upper back portion. So sometimes you have a bit of a forward shoulder position, but you could also say that this individual has kind of like a hump in their upper back. All right, going next, again, we're gonna draw a line from the center of the hip. And what we're seeing here is that this gentleman's shoulders are a little bit forward of the plumb line, and his ear hole is also in front of the plumb line. But what we're noticing is that he doesn't have a hunched upper back anymore. Instead, most of that bend comes from the lower back. And with medical terminology, we usually call that lumbar lordosis. Last but not least, again, we're gonna go from the center of the hip all the way up, perpendicular to the ground. For this instance, this person's shoulders are back and their ears are behind their hip joint with regards to the plumb line. And what they're indicating in this image is sway back. I actually think that genuine sway back looks a little bit different. What this person is doing is basically they are tilting back a bit. A lot of times, generally, they're gonna also have concurrent kyphosis with this. Okay, now we're gonna go ahead and go on to a real Reddit user. Just a little something about the viewpoints. and recommendations for taking postural photos. I think it's helpful to get both the knee and the foot in there. So basically from head to toe, from the sagittal view is actually very helpful. And we're also going to be doing ones from the frontal view as well, just to give it a little bit more variety, because you can't just look at somebody from their side and be able to determine all their postural problems. You also need to look from the front, look from the back, and a couple different other angles to get a better idea. All right, so this gentleman here, if you kind of look, he's standing at a sagittal view, meaning the camera's to his right. So we're gonna go ahead and mark the center of his hip, and then we're just gonna draw a plumb line all the way up this way. Okay, so if we kind of see this here, he has, his shoulder joints are actually a little bit behind, and his ear hole is actually in line with the plumb line. But what we're seeing here is a bit of a curvature in the upper back, and we're also seeing a bit of a hyperextension in the lumbar spine. So I'd say that he has a combination of thoracic kyphosis and a bit of lumbar lordosis as well. Some of the things that I would give somebody who shows up at the clinic like this is to make sure that they learn how to do a little bit of a posterior pelvic tilt by using their abdominals, engaging their glutes, and then also getting them to retract their shoulders so that they could decrease the amount of slouch that they have in their upper back. Other things that might be helpful is foam rolling the upper back, just to make sure that they have a little bit better extension and they could stand up straighter with that slouch. Okay, so next here we have this girl over here. And then again, we're gonna make that landmark from the center of the hip joint, perpendicular all the way up. Okay, so what we see here is that the shoulders are in line with the plumb line. However, her ears are a little bit in front of that plumb line. So I would say that she has a bit of a forward head. So things to watch out for is neck postural strain issues. Things such as chin tuck, doing a little bit of levator stretching would be helpful for that. And then she's also got a bit of this kyphosis in the thoracic spine and a bit of lordosis that you can see right here. So things to work on are abdominals, a bit of gluteals, working on improving the pelvic tilt, and working on, again, using the foam roll to roll out the thoracic spine so that you could have better upper back posture. Okay, next we have this gentleman, also again from the sagittal view, meaning from the side. If we draw a point from the center of the hip all the way up the plumb line, we can see that his shoulders are in line with the plumb line, but his head is significantly forward. So just kind of like the last person that we saw, I recommend that he perform some chin tucking, where he adjusts that posture. He thinks about bringing his chin a little bit closer towards his Adam apple, and think about standing up a little bit taller. And he's got also a bit of this thoracic kyphosis. So for him, I'd focus on working a little bit on doing some thoracic foam rolling, and then also getting a bit of some scapular retraction where he's able to stretch out his chest a bit more and retract the shoulders so that the shoulder blades aren't popping out as much. Okay, from my perspective, his low back looks relatively okay, but his elbow's kind of in the way of doing that. So another thing that I recommend for taking pictures is that you have somebody else do it, and that they're able to take a picture from you from head to toe, somebody to allow you to rest your arms down by your side. Another option is if you're living alone, then using a tripod or mounting your camera somewhere stable and then doing a timed shot, or just actually a video might work even better. That way you can get different angles, and then you can kind of pause at the moments where you want. Another consideration is that a lot of people, when they're posing for pictures for the internet, for like Reddit, they're actually correcting their posture a little bit. One thing that you want to do is actually recreate kind of like a genuine posture that you usually have when you're standing. So one idea is actually for you to march in place a couple of steps and just kind of relaxed. That way people have a better idea of what you look like naturally. All right, last but not least, so this gentleman here, nice abs, showing a little bit of a different viewpoint. So he's showing it from the front. So right off the bat, it's a little bit hard to tell if he has any spinal problems from the sagittal perspective. So it's a little hard to tell whether or not he has a kyphosis in his thoracic spine or lordosis in his lower back. But what I'm just going to point out over here on the top right corner is that you see actually a significant gapping to his right side. He has a little bit more of a curvature here compared to the left, where it's relatively flatter. So if we were to kind of imitate it, it would look like he's getting a little bit of a right side bend. He's got a bit of a shift in the pelvis as well. Now if you take a look at this picture where he bends over in the bottom right, what I notice first is that there's actually a bit more of a bulk here, and I suspect that he has a lot more muscle development in his left paraspinals. So one of the things that I might give to a patient who has pain issues with this is to work on loosening that up, and then also doing planks on the contralateral side, so planking to bolster his right side to make it a little bit stronger. But all of that is speculation. A little bit of the angles are kind of off center and really hard to tell exactly where his issues lie. But as far as I can see, his body is bent a little bit towards the right side, and I think it's because his left side is overdeveloped and pushing him that way. So those are the pictures that I found from Reddit, and I hope these tips and things that I pointed out were helpful. If you guys like to see more content like this regarding posture, regarding how to control pain symptoms related to posture, please subscribe to my channel. I'll be browsing or lurking on Reddit a little bit more for more images like this. If you guys have any submissions, please DM me on Reddit. I'm gonna be at u/fannypackdoctor. Thank you guys so much. Hope you guys learned something new and that it motivated you to do something about your posture today.